I was wiping down the counter at McDonald's for the 1,000th time that morning when everything changed. The breakfast rush had just ended, leaving behind the familiar aftermath of crumpled napkins and sticky syrup residue. My name tag read Dexter Shift Manager, a title that felt both like an achievement and a prison sentence. The man in the expensive suit had been sitting in the corner booth for 20 minutes, nursing a black coffee and typing on his phone. Nothing unusual about that. We got all types during the morning shift. But then he stood up to leave, and our eyes met across the restaurant. He stopped mid-step, his face going completely pale like he'd seen a ghost. His coffee cup trembled in his hand as he walked straight toward me, his Italian leather shoes clicking against our worn linoleum floor. "Dexter Vaughn?" His voice came out as barely a whisper, but there was something intense, almost desperate in his tone. He leaned forward, examining my face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You're the ghost student Harvard's been looking for." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Harvard, a name I hadn't allowed myself to think about for 5 years. A dream that had been ripped away from me so violently that even hearing it spoken aloud made my chest tighten. I set down my cleaning rag slowly, aware that my coworkers were starting to stare. "I'm sorry, sir. I think you have me confused with someone else." The lie came automatically, a defense mechanism I'd perfected over the years. "No," he said firmly, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. "Dexter Vaughn, Riverside High School valedictorian, perfect SAT scores, accepted to Harvard class of 2019 with the inaugural Blackstone Excellence Grant. That's you, isn't it?" The Blackstone Excellence Grant. Hearing those words after all these years was surreal. I remembered the name from the acceptance letter, remembered how my guidance counselor had cried when she told me I'd won it. $85,000 a year. A full ride to the best university in the world. A ticket out of everything. Let me tell you who I am, or rather, who I was supposed to be. My name is Dexter Vaughn, and at 18, I was the kid everyone said would make it out. In a small Ohio town where most kids followed their parents into the steel mills or service jobs, I was the anomaly. The weird kid who actually enjoyed studying, who saw beauty in mathematical equations, and found escape in classic literature. My mother, Patricia, worked part-time at a dental office, spending her days scheduling appointments for people who could afford porcelain veneers and teeth whitening. She'd come home talking about Mrs. Henderson's new smile, or how Dr. Morrison's daughter just got engaged to a pharmaceutical executive. My mother had a strange obsession with beauty and status, always lamenting how life had shortchanged her in both departments. My father, Harold, was quieter about his disappointments. He worked double shifts at the steel mill, his hands permanently stained with industrial grime no amount of soap could remove. He'd eat dinner in silence, occasionally grunting approval at something on the news, then fall asleep in his recliner by 8 o'clock. On good days, he'd pat my shoulder and say, "Keep studying, son, don't end up like me." Then there was my younger sister, Melody. If I was the brain of the family, Melody was supposed to be the beauty. Supposed to be, because my mother never thought she was quite beautiful enough. There was always something to improve. Her nose was too wide, her lips too thin, her chin too weak. My mother spent hours poring over fashion magazines with Melody, pointing out the faces of models and actresses, lamenting the genetic lottery that had failed their family. The man in the suit was still staring at me, waiting for an answer. Theodore Blackstone, he'd introduced himself. I recognized the name now, remembered it from the scholarship paperwork. He was the billionaire philanthropist who'd established the grant in honor of his late wife, herself a first-generation college student who'd become a renowned scientist. "That was a long time ago," I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I work at McDonald's now." "But you never came," Theodore said, his confusion genuine. "You won the scholarship, you were accepted, everything was arranged, then you just vanished. No response to emails, calls, letters. For 5 years, you've been Harvard's biggest mystery. 5 years. Had it really been that long? 5 years since the night my future was stolen from me, not by strangers or circumstance, but by the very people who were supposed to protect it. 10 years ago, I was Dexter Vaughn, the miracle kid from the wrong side of Riverside, Ohio. Every teacher I'd ever had used the same word to describe me. Exceptional. Not just smart, but hungry for knowledge in a way that made them stay after school just to recommend more books, harder problems, bigger challenges. I solved calculus equations the way other kids solved video game puzzles. Finding genuine joy in the moment, everything clicked into place. Our house sat on Maple Street, a modest 2-story with peeling yellow paint and a front porch that sagged slightly to the left. My bedroom was the converted attic, where I'd covered every wall with scholarship applications, college brochures, and a giant map of Boston with Harvard circled in red marker. I'd fall asleep staring at that circle, imagining myself walking through Harvard Yard in the fall, leaves crunching under my feet. Finally, where I belonged. My father, Harold, came home every night at 6:30, sharp, lunch pail in hand, steel dust in his hair. He'd wash up at the kitchen sink, scrubbing his hands raw while my mother Patricia complained about the gray water staining the porcelain. He was a man of few words, but deep pride. When I showed him my report cards, straight A's every semester since middle school, he'd nod slowly and slip a $20 bill into my hand. "For your college fund," he'd say, though we both knew $20 wouldn't even buy a textbook. My mother was different. Patricia Vaughn had grown up pretty enough to believe she deserved more, but not pretty enough to get it. She spent her days at Dr. Brennan's dental office, checking in patients who drove Mercedes and wore designer handbags. She'd come home with stories about Mrs. Wellington's daughter marrying an investment banker, or how the Fitzgerald family just bought a vacation home in Florida. These stories always ended the same way, with her looking around our cramped kitchen and sighing deeply. "If only I'd been born with better cheekbones," she'd say, touching her face. "Or, if your father had ambition beyond that mill, we could have been something." My sister Melody inherited my mother's obsession with appearance. At 16, she spent hours in front of the bathroom mirror, analyzing every angle of her face. She was pretty in a wholesome, girl-next-door way, but my mother had convinced her it wasn't enough. They'd spend weekends driving to makeup counters at department stores we couldn't afford to shop in, testing products and taking selfies under the fluorescent lights. Dexter got the brains, my mother would tell anyone who'd listen at church or the grocery store. But beauty is what opens doors in this world. Poor Melody, she tries so hard. The way she said, "poor Melody," while looking at my sister's perfectly normal face made something twist in my stomach. The way she never said, "poor Dexter," when discussing my acne scars or crooked nose from a childhood bike accident made it clear where I stood in her hierarchy of disappointment. School was my escape. Mrs. Chen, my guidance counselor, had taken me under her wing freshman year. She stayed after school to help me with scholarship applications, drove me to academic competitions in neighboring counties, even paid my SAT registration fees out of her own pocket. "You're going to make it out, Dexter," she'd say. "You're going to show everyone what's possible." I remember the day the Harvard acceptance came. April 5th, a Tuesday, unseasonably warm for Ohio spring. The envelope was thick, heavy with promise. I didn't open it immediately. I walked around the block 3 times, holding it against my chest, before finally sitting on our front porch and carefully breaking the seal. "Dear Mr. Vaughn, we are delighted to inform you that you have been accepted to Harvard University's class of 2019. Furthermore, you have been selected as the inaugural recipient of the Blackstone Excellence Grant, a full scholarship covering tuition, room, board, and expenses for all 4 years. $85,000 per year, $340,000 total, more money than my father would make in a decade at the mill. I ran inside, shouting for my family. My father was in his recliner, my mother was scrolling through her phone, and Melody was painting her nails at the kitchen table. I got in. I held up the letter. Harvard, full scholarship, everything covered. My father stood up slowly, something I rarely saw him do before 8 o'clock. He took the letter, read it twice, and then did something even rarer. He smiled. That's my boy, first Vaughn to go to college. My mother glanced up from her phone. That's nice, honey. When does it start? September, I said, my voice cracking with excitement. I leave in September. Melody didn't even look up from her nails. Great, now we'll never hear the end of it. That should have been my first warning sign. 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Harvard, I came home from my shift at the library to find a silver Mercedes parked in our driveway. We didn't know anyone who drove a Mercedes. My first thought was that someone was lost, but then I heard voices from inside, animated and excited in a way our house rarely witnessed. I pushed open the front door to find my parents and Melody sitting around our scratched kitchen table with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a medical journal. His suit was perfectly tailored, his teeth unnaturally white, his hands manicured and soft. Spread across the table were glossy brochures featuring before and after photographs of transformed faces. Dexter. My mother's eyes were bright with an energy I'd never seen before. Perfect timing. Come sit down. This is Dr. Reginald Cosmos from Beverly Hills. Dr. Cosmos stood and extended his hand. His grip was weak, his palm slightly damp. Your sister is quite fortunate. I only select 12 candidates per year for my exclusive transformation program. Transformation program? I remained standing, a cold feeling spreading through my chest. The full facial reconstruction package, my mother said, pushing a brochure toward me. Look at these results. These girls went from average to absolutely stunning. Magazine cover beautiful. I glanced at the photos. The women barely looked human anymore. Their features so altered they could have been computer-generated. What does this have to do with me? Dr. Cosmos is offering us an incredible opportunity, my mother continued. The complete package normally costs $92,000. Rhinoplasty, chin implant, lip fillers, cheek enhancement, jaw restructuring, even a slight brow lift. But if we pay up front in cash, he'll do everything for exactly $85,000. The room suddenly felt airless. $85,000. That's exactly what my Harvard scholarship covers per year. Yes, my mother said simply. We've already withdrawn it. The words didn't make sense at first. My brain, so good at processing complex information, couldn't compute what she'd just said. You withdrew my scholarship money? How? That money goes directly to Harvard. Not all of it, my father said quietly, speaking to his hands. The Blackstone grant included a living expense stipend sent to your account. $20,000 for books, supplies, transportation, emergencies. Your mother's name was on the account as a co-signer. You stole $20,000 from my college fund? Don't be dramatic, my mother snapped. We borrowed it, and we'll need to figure out the rest. Dr. Cosmos has agreed to a payment plan for the remaining $65,000, but we need to show good faith with this down payment. You're insane, I said, my voice rising. That money is for my education, for Harvard. I leave in 3 weeks. My mother stood up, her chair scraping against the linoleum. Let's be realistic here, Dexter. Look at yourself. Really look. That face, those scars, that awkward way you carry yourself. You think Harvard will change that? You think a degree will make people take you seriously when you look like that? Education is wasted on ugly people like you. No one will respect you in boardrooms. No one will promote you. You'll be the smart guy in the corner that everyone ignores. Each word was a carefully placed knife. She'd thought about this, planned it. But Melody, she continued, gesturing to my sister who was studying her reflection in her phone screen. She has potential. With Dr. Cosmos's help, she could marry a CEO. She could become an influencer. She could open doors for this entire family. Real doors, not academic ones that lead nowhere. This is theft, I said, looking desperately at my father. Dad, you know this is wrong. This is my future they're stealing. He shifted in his chair, still unable to meet my eyes. Your mother makes some valid points, son. Melody's beauty could be an investment for the whole family, and you're smart enough to succeed anywhere. You don't need Harvard. I earned Harvard, I shouted. I worked for it every single day for 4 years. You can still go to community college, Melody said, finally contributing to the conversation. Smart people figure things out, right? That's what you always say. Dr. Cosmos cleared his throat. I'll need the down payment by tomorrow to reserve the surgical dates. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So was Harvard, I said. My mother's face hardened into an expression I'd seen countless times, the one that meant the discussion was over. We're doing this, Dexter. It's already decided. Family helps family. Someday, when Melody is successful and connected, you'll thank us. I looked at each of their faces. My mother, triumphant. My father, ashamed but complicit. My sister already imagining her new face. Dr. Cosmos checking his Rolex. You're destroying my life for cosmetic surgery? I said. No, my mother replied. We're being practical. Beauty is currency. Education is just paper. That night, I called Harvard's financial aid office 17 times. I spent the next 2 weeks in a desperate frenzy, trying everything I could think of to salvage my Harvard admission. I called the financial aid office so many times they started recognizing my voice. I explained the situation to 3 different administrators, each one more sympathetic but equally powerless to help. I'm so sorry, Mr. Vaughn, the final administrator said, her voice heavy with genuine regret. Without the initial payment and proof of finances for the semester, we have to release your spot to someone on the wait list. The Blackstone grant requires enrollment confirmation by August 1st. That's in 5 days. Can't you make an exception? This is theft. My parents stole the money. That's a legal matter you'd need to resolve through the courts, but even if you did, the timeline wouldn't work. I'm truly sorry. I hung up and sat in Tommy's basement, where I'd been sleeping on a moldy futon since the night of the confrontation. Tommy Martinez had been my friend since middle school, the only person who never treated me differently for being the smart kid. His parents were going through a divorce and barely noticed an extra person in their basement. You could sue them, Tommy suggested for the 10th time, handing me a beer I was still too young to legally drink. Judge Garrett would probably hear the case quickly. He likes you. With what money would I pay a lawyer? And even if I won, the semester would already be started. Harvard would have given my spot away. So, what are you going to do? I looked around the basement, at the water stains on the ceiling and the boxes of forgotten Christmas decorations. I'm going to disappear, from their lives, I mean. If family helps family, then I'm no longer family. The next morning, I walked into the McDonald's on Route 49, the one far enough from home that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Barb, barely glanced at my application. Can you work the opening shift, 4:30 in the morning? Yes. Can you handle rude customers without losing your temper? Yes. When can you start? Tomorrow. She hired me on the spot. Minimum wage plus 50 cents for the early shift. I did the math quickly. At 40 hours a week, I'd make just enough to rent a room and eat. Nothing more. My first day was a disaster. I burned 3 batches of hash browns, gave a customer the wrong change, and forgot to start the coffee makers. Barb pulled me aside during a slow period. College boy, right? I can always tell. You're overthinking everything. This job isn't about being smart, it's about showing up and not making trouble. Can you do that? I nodded, swallowing my pride along with the lump in my throat. I can do that. Within a month, I had the routine memorized. Arrive at 4:20, start the grills, prep the egg station, brew the coffee, smile at customers even when they complained, clean everything twice, count the register 3 times, go home exhausted, shower off the grease smell that never fully left, collapse on the futon, wake up at 3:30 in the morning, repeat, I enrolled in night classes at Riverside Community College, business administration because it was practical, accounting because numbers still made sense even when nothing else did. I paid for each class in cash, saving for weeks to afford a single course. Meanwhile, my family's plan unfolded exactly as my mother had envisioned. Melody's surgery was completed in October, and by December she looked like a different person. The transformation was genuinely shocking. She went from pretty to otherworldly, the kind of beautiful that made people stop and stare. Her Instagram followers jumped from 300 to 30,000 in 2 months. She started dating Preston Ashford in January. Preston's family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the Midwest. My mother called him our golden ticket when she didn't think anyone was listening. The engagement came in March, complete with a 3-carat diamond and the announcement in the society pages of the Columbus Dispatch. My mother showed up at McDonald's exactly once during those years. I was working the register when she walked in, dressed in a new coat I recognized from Melody's Instagram posts, a gift from Preston's mother. "Dexter," she said, not bothering with pleasantries, "we need your help. The Ashfords want to throw an engagement party, but they're asking about Melody's family, about you. It's embarrassing, you working here." "Then tell them the truth," I said, maintaining my customer service smile. "Tell them you traded your son's education for your daughter's face. Don't be bitter. It worked out for everyone. Melody is happy, the family is moving up. You could be part of this if you weren't so stubborn. Would you like to order something, ma'am?" She pulled out her wallet. "The wedding venue needs a deposit. Family helps family, Dexter." I opened my register, pulled out a $20 bill and handed it to her. "That's all the family you left me with. Have a nice day." She took the money and left without ordering anything. Yesterday started like every other morning for the past 5 years. My alarm screamed at 3:30. I showered in cold water because the hot water heater in my apartment building was broken again, and I arrived at McDonald's by 4:20. The morning prep was automatic now. Start grills, prep eggs, brew coffee, stock napkins, check ice machine, count register. By the time we opened at 5, I had everything running perfectly. The breakfast rush hit around 7:30. Construction workers, office employees grabbing coffee, parents with kids begging for hotcakes. I moved between stations with practiced efficiency, taking orders, working the grill, calling out numbers. This was my life now, measured in hash brown batches and coffee refills. The man in the expensive suit arrived at 8:45, just as the rush was dying down. Silver hair, probably early 60s, wearing the kind of watch that could pay my rent for a year. He ordered a black coffee, nothing else, and sat in the corner booth. Rich people sometimes came in for the coffee, claiming they preferred it to the fancy stuff. I didn't pay him much attention until he stood up to leave. That's when he saw my name tag and froze. "Dexter Vaughn?" He said my name like he was identifying a suspect in a lineup. "From Riverside High School?" I felt my chest tighten. After 5 years, I'd stopped expecting anyone to recognize me. "Yes, sir. Can I help you?" He walked closer, studying my face with an intensity that made other customers turn to look. "Accepted to Harvard class of 2019? Recipient of the Blackstone Excellence Grant?" The words hit me like physical blows. I hadn't heard anyone say those words out loud in years. That was a long time ago. My God! He set his coffee down on the counter with shaking hands. "I'm Theodore Blackstone. I created that scholarship. I've been looking for you for 5 years. Theodore Blackstone. The billionaire philanthropist whose name had once represented my entire future. I'd researched him extensively after winning the scholarship, read about how his wife had grown up poor in Detroit, how she'd become a renowned biochemist, how they'd created the grant in her honor when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. "Mr. Blackstone," I managed to say, "I appreciate the scholarship opportunity, but circumstances prevented me from attending." "That's just it," he said, pulling out his phone with trembling fingers. "You never told us you weren't coming. You never withdrew, you simply vanished. No response to emails, letters, phone calls, nothing. My parents had access to the initial stipend. They used it for something else. Without that money, I couldn't attend. His face went through several expressions. Confusion, understanding, then anger. The $20,000 living expense payment? Yes, but that was just for initial expenses. The actual scholarship, the tuition, room and board, that goes directly to Harvard. $340,000, sitting in an escrow account with your name on it. The restaurant seemed to tilt. I gripped the counter to stay upright. What do you mean, sitting in an account? The Blackstone Excellence Grant isn't like other scholarships, he explained, his voice urgent now. It's a trust. Once awarded, the money is yours for whenever you're ready to use it. It can't be withdrawn, can't be transferred, can't be given to another student. My wife was very specific about this when we set it up. She said real life sometimes gets in the way of dreams, and education shouldn't have an expiration date. So, the money, it's still there? Every penny, plus interest. 4 years of scholarship at $85,000 per year, plus 5 years of interest at 3% annually. It's now worth approximately $390,000. I had to sit down. Barb appeared beside me, concerned. Dexter, you okay? You look like you're about to pass out. Theodore pulled out a business card and a letter from his jacket. This came from Harvard's Dean of Admissions yesterday, when I told them I'd resume searching for you. They've approved your deferred admission. You can start this January or next September, your choice. Full scholarship, plus the accumulated interest as a hardship grant for the years you lost. But I'm 28 now. I've been out of school for 5 years. My wife went back to medical school at 45, Theodore said firmly. What matters isn't when you start, but that you start. The boy who was supposed to attend Harvard never showed up, but the man standing in front of me, the one who kept working despite having everything stolen from him, that's who we want. How did you find me? His smile was sad but determined. I've been visiting every McDonald's within 200 miles of Riverside for the past 2 years. My wife made me promise before she died to find you. She read your application essay about working night shifts to help your family while maintaining perfect grades. She said anyone with that kind of determination deserved more than silence. She said you'd be somewhere, working hard, waiting without knowing you were waiting. He pushed the letter across the counter. The money is yours, Dexter. The opportunity is yours. It always has been. I'm writing this from my studio apartment, surrounded by Harvard admission packets, financial documents, and a course catalog thick as a phone book. The walls that once felt like they were closing in now seem too small to contain my future. The check for $390,000 sits on my kitchen table, real as the grease burns on my forearms, proof that sometimes justice comes wearing an expensive suit and drinking McDonald's coffee. Last night I called my parents for the first time in 2 years. The phone rang 3 times before my mother's voice filled my ear, artificially sweet like she was expecting someone important. Dexter, is that really you? Oh my goodness, we heard about Harvard. Theodore Blackstone posted about finding you on the alumni Facebook page. The whole town is talking about it. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Hello, Mom. Listen, sweetheart. Perfect timing, actually. We need to discuss Melody's situation. Preston left her last month for his 22-year-old secretary. Can you imagine? After everything we invested in that marriage. She needs reconstructive surgery now because some of the implants are causing nerve damage. The doctors say it'll cost at least $60,000 to fix everything properly. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. So, Preston left her? Men are pigs, Dexter. All that beauty, and he still wasn't satisfied. But that's not the point. Family helps family, and now that you have all that money, no. The word came out clean and final. No anger behind it. Just truth. No? Dexter, your sister is suffering. The implants are causing actual medical problems. Headaches, jaw pain, even trouble eating sometimes. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I genuinely was. "But my answer is no. This is cruel, Dexter. We're your family." "You're right about one thing. Family does help family, which is why I'm using part of the money to establish the Second Chance Foundation, a scholarship fund for students whose families stole their opportunities. Kids who were told they weren't pretty enough, good enough, or worthy enough for education." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then my father's voice came through, gruff and uncertain. "Son, we did what we thought was best at the time." "No, Dad. You did what was easiest. You chose Mom's vanity over my future. You chose Melody's face over my education. You chose to avoid conflict over protecting your son. There's a difference between doing what's best and doing what's convenient." "That's not fair," he protested. "We were thinking about the family's future. You were thinking about appearances. Mom was embarrassed by how I looked and thought Melody's beauty would be your meal ticket." "How did that work out?" My mother grabbed the phone back. "You're being vindictive." "I'm being free," I corrected. "For 5 years, I've worked 16-hour days, lived in apartments with broken heat, eaten ramen for dinner more times than I can count. And through all of it, I never heard from any of you unless you needed something. That's not family, that's just shared DNA." This morning, Melody texted me. It was the first direct communication we'd had since I left home. "Dexter, I heard about Harvard. I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know that I see, now, what Mom took from you, what we all took from you. The surgery ruined my life. I became someone fake, someone Preston could show off but never love. I lost myself trying to become perfect. You were right to walk away." I texted back, "Beauty fades, education lasts forever." She replied, "Mom was wrong about you." "No," I wrote, "she was wrong about what matters." Theodore Blackstone calls me every few days now. He says his wife would have been proud of how I handled everything. Not the suffering part, but the surviving part. The refusing to quit part. He's already introduced me to 3 other students who will be in my year, all returning to education after life knocked them down. We're calling ourselves the Phoenix Cohort, the ones who rose from ashes. My last shift at McDonald's is next Friday. Barb already hired my replacement but asked me to train him. "Teach him that thing you do," she said, "where you keep your dignity even when the world's trying to take it." I'm keeping the name tag. It'll sit on my Harvard dorm desk, a reminder that every person serving you has a story, a dream deferred, a battle you know nothing about. A reminder that sometimes the kid flipping burgers was supposed to be studying biochemistry, but life had other plans. My face still has the same scars, the same crooked nose, the same features my mother called unmarketable. But Theodore Blackstone saw past all that. He saw someone who refused to let others write his ending. Harvard will get a 28-year-old freshman who knows the value of every single day in those classrooms because he spent 5 years dreaming about them while mopping floors at 4 in the morning. The truth is, I'm grateful now. Not for the betrayal, but for who it forced me to become. At 18, I would have arrived at Harvard as a brilliant but naive kid. At 28, I'm arriving as a man who knows that the ugliest faces sometimes carry the brightest souls, and the prettiest lies sometimes hide in the most beautiful packages. Thank you for watching my story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, if your dreams were stolen by people who should have protected them, please share this video. Leave a comment about your own second chance, your own Phoenix moment. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about real people who refused to let others define their worth. Remember, your face might not be perfect, but your future still can be.